She only wanted to eat her lunch in peace, but the moment he threatened her little brother, the human became something the whole academy feared. I have seen a lot of stupid things in my 3 cycles at the Galactic Academy. I have watched Planetharian students try to breathe methane for a dare. I have seen a Zeltron attempt to eat a live Grix beetle, which, spoiler alert, did not end well for anyone involved. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I witnessed on that particular afternoon in Cafeteria Hall 7. My name is Vex Telvorn, and I am what you would call a Krellian. We are the accountants of the galaxy, the record keepers, the ones who watch and document. We have 4 eyes, which is fantastic for spotting inconsistencies in financial reports, but also means I cannot unsee the horror that was about to unfold. Trust me, I try. The cafeteria was packed that day. Hundreds of students from dozens of species, all crammed into one massive hall that smelled like a bizarre mixture of sulfur, ozone, and whatever the Thaxians call food. Seriously, I think they eat recycled engine parts. The noise level was as usual absolutely deafening. Chittering, roaring, whistling, and the occasional telepathic screech that made your brain itch. You know, normal lunch rush stuff. And there, sitting at a corner table by herself, was Riley Frost, the human. Now, humans were rare at the academy. Super rare. Like spotting a void whale in hyperspace rare. We had exactly 1 human exchange student that semester, and she had been keeping to herself for the most part. Smart girl. Most species did not know what to make of humans yet. The rumors were, well, let us just say they were creative. I had heard everything from humans can survive in vacuum for short periods, to they literally eat poison for fun, to my personal favorite, they befriend predators as a hobby. Riley looked painfully average for a human. At least I assumed she was average. How would I know? She had that strange smooth skin they all have. 2 eyes which seemed ridiculously inefficient for a supposedly advanced species. Brown hair pulled back in what I later learned was called a ponytail. She was wearing the standard academy uniform, gray and boring, and she was eating something that looked disturbingly like it might still be alive. Humans have bizarre food preferences. What struck me most was how calm she looked. Serene, even. She was reading something on her datapad, occasionally taking bites of her questionable meal, completely oblivious to the fact that every few minutes, someone would glance her way and quickly look away. There was this bubble of empty space around her table. Nobody wanted to sit too close to the Deathworlder. Oh right, that is what we called her species, Deathworlders. Apparently, Earth, the human homeworld, was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld by the Galactic Survey Corps. Class 12. Do you know how insane that is? Most civilized species come from Class 2 or 3 worlds. Comfortable places, mild weather, reasonable gravity, predators that have the decency to be afraid of technology. Earth? Earth was a nightmare planet where everything, and I do mean everything, was actively trying to kill you. The gravity alone would crush most species. The atmosphere had way too much oxygen. Do not even get me started on the wildlife. But I am getting ahead of myself. So there was Riley sitting alone, radiating this weird peaceful energy, when I noticed him. Krasnok. Oh, ancestors preserve me, Krasnok. Krasnok was a Gorvath, which meant he was basically a walking nightmare made of muscle, bone plates, and terrible life choices. Gorvaths were warrior species. Big, aggressive, and dumb as a box of rocks. No offense to any Gorvaths reading this. Actually, yes, full offense. Krasnok was particularly awful. He stood about 8 feet tall, had arms thicker than my torso, and a face that looked like someone had tried to sculpt a person but gave up halfway through and just added teeth instead. Lots of teeth. He was also the Academy's resident bully, which everyone knew but nobody did anything about because, well, have you seen a Gorvath? They are terrifying. Krasnok had made it his personal mission to make life miserable for anyone he deemed weak, and apparently today he had decided that Riley qualified. I watched, all 4 of my eyes widening in horror, as Krasnok lumbered over to Riley's table. His 3 friends, equally stupid but slightly smaller Gorvaths, followed behind him like the loyal idiots they were. The cafeteria noise dipped slightly. People were noticing. This was about to get ugly. Krasnok stopped right in front of Riley's table, casting a shadow over her meal. His breathing sounded like a malfunctioning air recycler. Loud, wheezy, threatening. Riley did not look up. Hey pink skin, Krasnok growled, his voice like gravel being crushed in a trash compactor. You are sitting at my table. It was not his table. Everyone knew it was not his table. The cafeteria had open seating, but that was not the point, and we all knew it. Riley still did not look up. She took another bite of her food, chewed slowly and turned a page on her datapad. The calm on her face did not waver even slightly. Oh no, I thought. Oh no, no, no. This is bad, this is really bad. Krasnok's faceplates flushed a darker shade of purple, which in Gorvath body language meant he was getting angry. He slammed one massive fist down on the table, making Riley's tray jump. Her drink, some kind of dark caffeinated human beverage, sloshed but did not spill. I said. Krasnok repeated, leaning down so his face was closer to hers. You are at my table, human. Move. And finally, Riley looked up. Her expression had not changed. Still calm. Still serene. Her eyes, those weird two eyes that humans had, met Krasnok's 6, with absolutely zero fear. None. Not even a flicker. She blinked once, slowly, and then spoke in a voice so level it actually made my scales itch. No thank you, she said politely. I'm quite comfortable here. The cafeteria went silent. Krasnok stared at her. His friends stared at her. I stared at her. Everyone within earshot was staring because that little human had just told the biggest, meanest bully in the academy to, essentially, shove off. This was the moment. This was the moment where I should have gotten up, walked away, and pretended I had never seen any of this. But I could not. Call it morbid curiosity. Call it my historian instincts. Call it sheer stupidity. I stayed in my seat, all four eyes locked on that table, and watched as everything went horribly, horribly wrong. Krasnok's face went through about 17 different shades of purple in the span of 3 seconds. It was actually impressive from a biological standpoint. Less impressive was the vein that started throbbing on his forehead, which looked like it might actually explode. I was genuinely concerned about splash damage. What did you just say to me? He hissed, leaning even closer. His breath, which smelled like rotting Thaxian moss, washed over Riley's table. I saw a few students 3 tables over actually gag. Riley, and I cannot stress this enough, did not even flinch. She just sat there, her fork still in her hand, looking at Krasnok like he was a mildly interesting insect specimen. Not even a threatening insect, just, something that existed. I said no thank you, she repeated, her tone still perfectly polite. I am eating my lunch. You can find another table. The cafeteria has plenty of open seating. Now, here is the thing about humans that I had been hearing in rumors. Supposedly they came from a planet so dangerous that they developed this bizarre trait called stubbornness. Not the normal kind of stubbornness, where you maybe argue about something for a few minutes and then give up. No, human stubbornness was pathological. They would literally rather die than back down from something they believed was right. Their entire history was apparently just one long list of humans refusing to quit even when quitting was clearly the smart option. I was starting to think those rumors might have some truth to them. Krasnok straightened up and his 3 friends spread out slightly, forming a semicircle around Riley's table. Classic intimidation tactics. I had seen Krasnok do this before. Usually at this point whoever he was targeting would apologize, move, and spend the rest of the semester avoiding eye contact. It was a tried and true formula. You think you are tough, human? Krasnok laughed. It sounded like rocks being tumbled in a metal drum. You think because you come from some backwater Deathworld that you are special? Let me tell you something, pink skin. I have broken beings twice your size for less disrespect than you just showed me. Riley took a sip of her dark beverage, still calm, still completely unruffled. That sounds like a you problem, she said simply. Oh, ancestors. Oh no, I actually felt my respiratory sacs constrict. Did she just? She did. She absolutely just dismissed him, in front of everyone. The crowd was growing now. Students were abandoning their meals, forming a ring around the confrontation. I saw Plantharians, Zeltrons, even a few brave Thaxians inching closer. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Nobody wanted to intervene. That was the thing about Krasnok. He had a reputation, and that reputation kept people scared. I remembered, suddenly, a lecture from 3 weeks ago. Professor Thelmar, our xenobiology instructor, had been discussing human physiology. It was supposed to be an educational session since we had a human student now. The whole thing had been absolutely terrifying. Humans, Professor Thelmar had said in his whispery voice, are persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? It means they chase prey until the prey literally dies from exhaustion. They have this thing called an endurance system. They can run for days. Their homeworld has a gravity that is 30% higher than standard. Their bone density is ridiculous. Their muscle fiber composition is designed for both power and stamina, and most disturbingly they have an adrenal response system that, when activated, temporarily increases their strength, pain tolerance, and aggression to frankly absurd levels. One student had raised a tentacle. But Professor, Surely they must have some weakness. Professor Thalamer had gone very quiet. Yes, he had said finally. They do. They are soft. No natural armor. No venom. No claws. But here is the thing. They know they are soft. So they learn to make weapons. And they learn to fight dirty. And they learn to never ever give up. That is what makes them dangerous. Not that they are strong, but that they absolutely refuse to stay down. Standing there, watching Riley calmly finish her drink while Krasnok loomed over her, I realized Professor Thalmar had been absolutely right. Krasnok grabbed the edge of Riley's table and flipped it. The entire table. Just picked it up and threw it aside like it weighed nothing. Riley's food went flying. Her datapad clattered to the floor. Her drink splashed across the ground in a dark puddle. Riley stood up slowly. Very slowly. She was, I realized, much smaller than Krasnok. He was 8 feet of armored muscle. She was maybe 5.5 feet of what looked like breakable flesh. The size difference was comical. This should not have been a fight. This should have been a slaughter. So why was every single one of my instincts screaming at me to run?
That was rude, Riley said quietly, looking down at her spilled lunch.
I was enjoying that. Oh, you want to do something about it, human? Krasnok growled, stepping forward. His friends were grinning now, their teeth flashing. They thought this was funny. They thought they were about to watch their boss humiliate some weak little Deathworlder. The crowd pressed closer. Someone was recording this. I realized. Multiple someones. This was going to be all over the Academy network within the hour. The question was, what exactly would they be recording? Riley brushed off her uniform, still not looking directly at Krasnok. I want you to apologize, she said simply. And then I want you to leave me alone. That is what I want. Krasnok laughed again. His friends joined in. The sound echoed through the now silent cafeteria. Or what? He challenged, puffing out his chest plates. What are you going to do about it, Pink Skin? You going to cry? You going to run to the administrators? You think anyone here is going to help you? He had a point. Nobody was moving to help. Everyone was just watching, waiting. I felt ashamed, suddenly, for not doing anything. But what could I do? I was a Krellian. We were accountants, not fighters. I would get myself killed. Riley finally looked up at Krasnok again. Her eyes had changed somehow. They were still calm, but there was something else there now. Something cold. Something that made my blood feel like it had turned to ice. I am going to give you one chance, she said, her voice dropping lower. Walk away, right now. Apologize, turn around and walk away. This does not have to go any further. It was a warning. A genuine, honest warning. Anyone with half a brain could hear it in her voice. This was her giving him an out. This was her being merciful. Krasnok did not have half a brain. I am not going anywhere. Human, he snarled. And then he made his first big mistake. He poked her in the chest with one massive finger, hard enough that she took a step back. Except maybe to watch you crawl out of this cafeteria after I am done with you. The crowd collectively held its breath. This had crossed a line. He had put his hands on her. In most civilized stations, that alone would be grounds for security intervention. But security was nowhere to be seen. We were on our own. Riley looked down at where he had poked her, then back up at his face. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she smiled. It was not a nice smile. Okay then, she said softly. Your choice. That was when I knew. That was the exact moment I knew someone was about to die. Krasnok was on a roll now. He thought he was winning. You could see it in the way he stood, chest puffed out, arms spread wide like he was performing for the crowd. In his mind he had already won this confrontation. The human had not run away crying yet, but she would. They always did. You know what? He said, his voice dripping with mockery. I did some research on you, Riley Frost. Yeah, I know your name. I know you have a little brother back on your pathetic mudball planet. What is his name? Tommy? Timmy? Riley's expression did not change, but I saw it. I saw the shift. It was tiny, microscopic really, but all 4 of my eyes caught it. Her jaw tightened. Just a fraction. Her shoulders, which had been relaxed, went absolutely rigid. Her hands, which had been hanging loosely at her sides, slowly curled into fists. His name is Tyler, she said, and her voice had gone flat, completely flat. All the politeness, all the measured calm was gone. What was left was something that made my survival instinct scream. And you are going to stop talking now. But Krasnok was an idiot. A big, stupid, armored idiot who did not know when to shut his feeding orifice. Tyler. Right, he continued, grinning wider. Cute kid. Saw his picture in your file. You know, maybe when I am done with you I should take a trip to Earth. Visit little Tyler. Show him what happens when his big sister does not know her place in the galaxy. I bet he would cry real pretty just like you are about to. The temperature in the cafeteria seemed to drop by 10 degrees. I am not exaggerating. I actually felt colder. Several students near the front of the crowd took involuntary steps backward. Something primal in all of us recognized that we were now in the presence of danger, real danger. Riley's eyes had changed completely. They were still brown, still human, but there was nothing soft in them anymore. They looked like chips of ice. No, worse, they looked like the eyes of something that had killed before and would absolutely kill again. Her breathing had changed too. It was slower now, deeper, controlled, like she was preparing for something. You just made a mistake, Riley said, and her voice was so quiet that the entire cafeteria had to strain to hear it. A really, really big mistake. I noticed her stance had shifted without her seeming to move. Her weight was balanced differently now. Her feet were positioned wider, one slightly in front of the other. I had seen combat stances before in training videos. This was a combat stance. A very efficient one. Here is what is going to happen, Riley continued, her words coming out precise and clipped. You are going to apologize for threatening my brother. Then you are going to back away from me. Then you are going to leave this cafeteria and never speak to me again. This is your last warning. The only warning you are going to get. Do you understand me? Her tone was not angry. That was the terrifying part. She was not yelling. She was not emotional. She was stating facts, giving instructions, like a soldier briefing a mission. Cold, professional, lethal. Krasnok stared at her for a moment, then he threw his head back and laughed. That horrible grinding laugh. Oh, this is rich. He wheezed between chuckles. The little human thinks she is scary. The little Deathworlder thinks she can threaten me. Let me show you what I think of your warnings, pink skin. And then he made his second big mistake. His fatal mistake. He reached out with both hands and shoved Riley. Hard. Hard enough that a normal being would have been knocked off their feet. Riley slid back about 2 feet, her boots squeaking on the cafeteria floor, but she did not fall. She absorbed the impact, bent her knees slightly and stayed upright. Then she looked up at Krasnok with those cold, dead eyes. Okay, she said simply. I tried. What happened next took exactly 4.3 seconds. I know because I checked the timestamp on the security footage later after the medical teams had left, after the administrators had interviewed everyone, after the whole academy had been turned upside down by what we had witnessed. 4.3 seconds. That was all it took for Riley Frost to end Krasnok. Riley moved. Not like a person moves, like a weapon moves, like something designed for efficiency and violence moves. She stepped forward into Krasnok's space, inside his reach, which seemed insane because he was so much bigger than her. His hands were coming down, probably to grab her again, to throw her around like a toy. They never made contact. Riley's right hand shot up, fingers extended and struck Krasnok directly in the throat, right in the soft spot between his bone plates. I heard the impact from where I was standing, a wet, crunching sound that made my stomach turn. Krasnok's eyes went wide. He made a choking, gurgling noise and staggered backward. His friends started to move forward, finally realizing this was not going the way they thought. Too slow, way too slow. Riley was already moving again. Riley spun. Just pivoted on one foot, like she was performing some kind of dance. Except this dance was a nightmare. Her elbow came around and caught the first of Krasnok's friends, a Gorvath named Thruk, right in the side of his head. The crack echoed through the cafeteria like a gunshot. Thruk dropped like someone had cut his power supply, just collapsed in a heap, out cold before he hit the ground. The second friend, I think his name was Grell, tried to grab Riley from behind. Big mistake. Huge. Riley dropped her weight, slipped under his arms like she was made of liquid, and drove her heel down onto his knee. The joint bent sideways with a sound that made half the crowd turn away. Grell screamed, a high-pitched wail of agony, and crumpled. Riley silenced him with a quick strike to the side of his head. Down he went. 2 Gorvaths. Down. In less than 2 seconds. The third friend, the smart one apparently, turned and ran. Just bolted, shoved through the crowd and disappeared. I did not blame him. I wanted to run too. My legs were not cooperating though. They had apparently decided that standing perfectly still and watching was the better survival strategy. Krasnok had recovered somewhat from the throat strike. He was still wheezing, still making awful choking sounds, but he was upright and angry. So very angry. His faceplates had gone almost black with rage. He roared, or tried to roar. It came out more like a wet cough, and charged at Riley with his arms outstretched. Riley waited, just stood there, calm, centered, like she had all the time in the world. Krasnok was 3 steps away. 2 steps. 1 step. Riley moved to the side at the last possible second. Krasnok's momentum carried him forward, his hands grasping at empty air. Riley's foot snapped out and caught him behind his knee. With his own forward motion working against him, Krasnok went down hard. The floor shook when he hit it. Dust actually puffed up from the impact point. He tried to push himself up, started to rise. Riley was already on him. She moved behind him faster than my eyes could track. One moment she was to his side, the next she was behind him, her arms moving with terrifying precision. Her left arm snaked around his throat from behind, not choking him, positioning. Her right hand came up and gripped the back of his head. Her legs wrapped around his torso, locking her body against his back like some kind of predatory creature. Krasnok thrashed. He was strong, incredibly strong. He reached back, trying to grab her, trying to pull her off. His hands found her arms, and he pulled. I saw Riley grimace, saw her uniform sleeve tear, but she did not let go, did not loosen her grip even a fraction. "Stop fighting," Riley said into his ear, her voice barely audible. "Just stop. Please just stop." She was giving him one more chance. Even now, even in the middle of this, she was trying to give him an out, trying to end this without killing him. Krasnok did not stop. He roared again, that wet horrible sound, and threw himself backward, tried to crush her against the floor. Riley held on, adjusted her position and squeezed tighter. "Last chance," she said, and there was something in her voice now, something sad, something regretful. "Last chance, Krasnok. Tap out. Just tap out and this ends." Krasnok's response was to throw another elbow backward. It caught Riley in the ribs. I heard the impact, saw her face contort in pain, but still she held on. "Okay," Riley whispered. "I am sorry." Then she twisted. It was not a big motion, not dramatic, just a quick, controlled rotation of her arms and body, clinical, practiced, efficient, like she had done this before, like she had been trained to do exactly this. The sound was distinct, a sharp crack that cut through every other noise in the cafeteria, loud enough that everyone heard it, clear enough that there was no mistaking what it was. Krasnok's body went limp, just all at once stopped moving. His arms dropped to his sides, his eyes, all 6 of them, stared at nothing. Riley held the position for another 2 seconds, I think to make sure it was done, and then she released him. His body slumped forward and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Dead. Krasnok was dead. The cafeteria was silent, completely silent. Hundreds of students, dozens of species, and not one of them made a sound. Even the environmental systems seemed quiet. All you could hear was Riley's breathing, heavy, controlled, coming down from whatever that was. She stood up slowly, wincing as she moved. Her uniform was torn. There was blue blood, Gorvath blood, splattered on her sleeves. She had a cut on her cheek that was bleeding red, human red. Her hair had come loose from the ponytail. She looked, for the first time since this started, human, fragile, breakable. But she was the one standing. Riley looked down at Krasnok's body. Her expression was unreadable. Then she looked up at the crowd, made eye contact with several students, including me. I flinched when her eyes met mine. Could not help it. "Someone call medical," she said quietly. "And security. Tell them there has been an incident." Nobody moved. We were all frozen, in shock, traumatized probably. "Now," Riley said more forcefully. "Call them now." That broke the spell. 3 students pulled out their communicators simultaneously. I heard frantic voices requesting emergency services, requesting security, requesting, I think someone said, a body removal team. Riley walked over to one of the still upright tables and sat down. Just sat down, like nothing had happened. Like she had not just killed someone with her bare hands in front of hundreds of witnesses. She was breathing hard. I noticed. Her hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline. I remembered from the lecture. The human adrenal response winding down. The medical team arrived first. 4 of them, rushing in with emergency equipment and panicked expressions. They went straight to Krasnok, scanning him, trying to find vital signs. One of them looked up at his colleagues and shook his head. Confirmed dead. They moved to the other 2 Gorvaths next. Throck and Grell were alive, thankfully. Unconscious and injured, but alive. Security came next. 6 armed officers in full tactical gear. They had their weapons drawn, scanning the crowd for threats. Their leader, a grizzled Zingferi veteran named Commander Raxpol, spotted Riley immediately. He and his team approached cautiously, weapons not quite pointing at her but ready. "Riley Frost?" Commander Raxpol asked, his voice tight. Riley looked up at him, Nodded. Yes, sir, she said quietly. That is me. You need to come with us, he said. Right now. Do not make this difficult. Riley stood up slowly, keeping her hands visible. I understand, Commander, she said. I am not going to resist. I will cooperate fully, but I need you to know. This was self-defense. He attacked me first. He threatened my family. There are hundreds of witnesses. Commander Raxpol's expression was unreadable. That will be sorted out in the investigation, he said. Right now you are coming with us. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention? Riley glanced down at herself. At the torn uniform. At the blood. Just some bruises and a cut, she said. Nothing serious. I will be fine. 2 security officers moved forward with restraints. Energy cuffs, standard procedure for detaining someone after a violent incident. Riley held out her wrists without being asked. The cuffs clicked into place, glowing softly. She did not fight, did not argue, just stood there, compliant and calm. As they led her toward the exit, she passed right by my table. Our eyes met again. Up close, I could see the exhaustion in her face, the sadness. This had not been easy for her. She had not enjoyed it, had not wanted it, but she had done what she thought she had to do. He should have walked away, she said softly, maybe to me, maybe to herself. I gave him so many chances. He should have just walked away. Then she was gone. Let out by security. The cafeteria remained silent for another 30 seconds. Then, all at once, everyone started talking, shouting, panicking, crying. The noise was overwhelming. I just sat there, all 4 of my eyes still locked on where Riley had been sitting, where she had calmly eaten her lunch before everything went wrong, where a human from a Class 12 Deathworld had just reminded us all exactly why her species was classified that way. Professor Thelmar had been right. Humans were soft, no armor, no claws, no venom, but they absolutely refused to stay down. And when you pushed them too far, when you threatened what they loved, they became something else entirely. They became lethal. The investigation took 3 days. 3 very long, very tense days where the entire academy walked on eggshells and whispered in corners. Classes continued, but nobody was paying attention. How could we? We had all witnessed a death, a killing, and we were all trying to process what it meant. I spent most of those 3 days in the archive, doing what Krellians do best, research, because I needed to understand. I needed to know what we had actually witnessed in that cafeteria. The security footage was released on day 2. All of it. Every angle. The Academy administration, in a rare moment of transparency, decided that everyone needed to see exactly what had happened. No rumors, no speculation, just facts. I watched it 17 times, counted every second, analyzed every movement, and what I found was both horrifying and fascinating. The footage showed everything. Kresnak approaching Riley, the initial harassment, Riley's repeated attempts to de-escalate, her warnings, multiple warnings, and then, critically, it showed Kresnak making those threats, about Tyler, about Riley's little brother. The audio was crystal clear, no ambiguity. He had threatened a child, then he had put his hands on her, twice. But that was not all the investigation uncovered. Turns out, Kresnak had a long file, 17 prior complaints of harassment, 11 incidents of physical assault, 4 cases of extortion, 2 complaints that had been mysteriously withdrawn, probably because the victims were too scared to follow through. The Academy had known he was a problem, and they had done nothing, absolutely nothing, because he was a Gorvath, and Gorvath were influential, and nobody wanted to start an interspecies incident. Well, they had one now. The human embassy got involved. Apparently Riley's father was someone important in the Earth military, some kind of special forces commander. When he found out his daughter had been threatened, had been assaulted, had been forced to defend herself, he had made some very angry calls to very important people, the kind of calls that made administrators sweat. On day 3, the Academy released their decision. Riley Frost was cleared of all charges. The killing was ruled justified self-defense after sustained harassment and credible threats. She would face no criminal prosecution, no expulsion, no formal reprimand. In fact, the statement went further, condemned the Academy's prior inaction on Kresnak's behavior, promised reforms, promised better protection for students. Kresnak's family tried to protest, tried to claim it was murder, tried to demand justice for their son, but the footage did not lie, neither did the 17 prior complaints, neither did the fact that he had threatened a child. Their protests fell flat. Within a day they withdrew them entirely. The shame, I heard, was immense. In Gorvath culture, to be killed by someone half your size was bad enough. To be killed justifiably, after you had behaved dishonorably, that was a stain that would follow the family for generations. Riley returned to classes on day 4. I saw her in the cafeteria again, sitting at a different table this time, alone again, but the bubble around her was different now. It was not avoidance, it was respect. And fear. Definitely fear. Nobody was getting within 10 feet of the human who had killed a Gorvath with her bare hands. I watched her for a while, debating with myself. Then I made a decision. A stupid decision, probably. But I had questions. I needed answers. And I was tired of being a coward. I picked up my tray and walked over to her table. Riley looked up as I approached, her expression neutral, guarded. "May I sit?" I asked, keeping my voice polite and non-threatening. She studied me for a moment with those strange 2 eyes. Then she nodded. "Sure," she said. "Go ahead." I sat down across from her, carefully maintaining a respectful distance. She was eating again. Something that looked marginally less alive than her previous meal. "Progress. My name is Vextelvor," I said. "I am Krelian. I was there, in the cafeteria. I saw everything." "I remember you," Riley said quietly. 4 eyes. Blue scales. "You were sitting 3 tables over, taking notes on your datapad." She had noticed me. During all of that chaos, she had actually noticed individual bystanders. The observational skills were incredible. "I have been researching your species," I admitted. "Trying to understand. Trying to, I do not know, make sense of what I saw. I hope that is not offensive." Riley shook her head. "Not offensive," she said. "Just thorough. What did you find?" I pulled up my datapad. "Okay. So, Earth. Class 12 Deathworld. Gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, which is 32% higher than galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen content is 21%, which is borderline toxic for most species. Native predators include creatures called bears, sharks, crocodiles, and something called a hippopotamus, which is apparently responsible for more deaths than any other large land animal." Riley actually smiled a little at that. "Hippos are terrifying," she confirmed. "Your species evolved as persistence hunters," I continued. "You can run for hours, days even. You have an endurance system that is frankly absurd. You sweat to regulate temperature, which allows you to outlast prey in hot climates. Your bone density is designed for high gravity. Your muscle composition is optimized for both power and endurance. And you have this thing called adrenaline that temporarily makes you stronger and faster when threatened. You have done your homework," Riley said, impressed. "But here is what I do not understand," I said, leaning forward. "With all of that, with all of those advantages, why were you so calm? Why did you give him so many chances? You could have ended that fight in the first 3 seconds. I have watched the footage, analyzed your movements. You were holding back the entire time. Why?" Riley was quiet for a moment. She set down her fork and looked at me directly. "Because killing someone is not something you do lightly," she said softly. "It is not something you do because you can. It is something you do because you have to. Because there is no other choice left." I gave Krasnok every opportunity to walk away because I did not want to kill him. I really did not want to. But he made his choice, and I made mine. "The throat strike," I said. "That was not lethal. That was a warning." "Yes," Riley confirmed. "I could have crushed his windpipe completely. I did not. I gave him pain and difficulty breathing. A reason to stop. He did not stop." "The final technique," I said carefully. "The one you used at the end. That was very precise. Very controlled. You have done that before." Riley nodded slowly. "My father is military," she said. "Special operations. He started training me when I was 8. Self-defense. Combat techniques. How to protect myself and others. How to fight when you have no other option. And critically, how to know when you have no other option. That moment comes later than you think. Later than most people realize." "You were showing restraint," I said. The realization hitting me. "The entire time, you were not fighting at full capacity." "I was showing immense restraint," Riley corrected. And there was something in her voice. Something that made my scales prickle. "Vextower. If I had wanted to, I could have killed Krasnok in the first exchange. Permanently disabled all 3 of his friends before they even realized I had moved. But that is not who I am. That is not who I want to be. I only use the minimum force necessary. Always. What you saw in that cafeteria was me trying very hard not to hurt anyone. Right up until I had no choice." I sat back, processing this. "So when humans talk about restraint, about holding back, that is real. That is not just bravado." "That is very real," Riley said. "Humans are apex predators from a death world. We are designed to hunt, To fight, to survive in conditions that would kill most species, but we are also designed to cooperate, to form communities, to care for each other. Those two things exist together, the capacity for violence and the choice to be gentle. That is what makes us human, not that we can kill, but that we choose not to unless we absolutely have to. I looked at her with new understanding, new respect. Thank you, I said, for explaining, for being patient with my questions. Riley smiled, a real smile this time. Thank you for asking, she said, and thank you for sitting with me. Not many people are willing to do that right now. They are scared. I know, Riley said. I do not blame them, but I am still just Riley, still just a student trying to get through my classes and learn about the galaxy. What happened with Krasnok? That was an exception, not the rule. The galaxy is learning that now, I said. About humans, about what you are capable of. It is honestly a little terrifying. Riley's smile turned sad. Good, she said quietly. Maybe if people are a little scared, they will think twice before threatening someone's family, before putting their hands on someone who just wants to be left alone. Maybe the next person like Krasnok will make a better choice. She was right. The entire academy had learned a lesson in those 4.3 seconds. A lesson about assumptions, about underestimating the soft-looking beings from Deathworlds, about the difference between can and will. Humans could be lethal, but they chose to be kind, right up until you did not give them a choice anymore. That was what made them truly dangerous.